Hello, this is Michael Wojcik with a Rochester City Council update for March 16th, 2015. I thought we were getting out of there at a fairly reasonable time. I look at my clock in my car. Oh, it's only 10 o'clock, and I realized I hadn't changed the clock in there yet, so no, it was another 4-hour meeting. And unfortunately, a great portion of that time was basically wasted on hearing about a development that was nowhere near ready to come to the City Council. And that's really disappointing. It's a waste of everybody's time. Frustrating. Potentially a great project, but nowhere near prime time. I have to first of all say thanks. I had some people giving me encouragement throughout the meeting. I had some hugs before, during, and after the meeting. It's incredibly frustrating, and it wears on me with some of the things we've had to deal with as a council. And it's become very clear that I still have a great deal of anger about, when the council was willing to determine that high density was the same thing as low density in order to approve a project. It's such an incredible disappointment. I think it's it takes away the dignity of the city council when decisions are made like that, and I'm having a hard time letting that one go, and it's pretty clear that I have a lot of mistrust and frustration with the council right now. Remain incredibly disappointed by that. A few other things that happened today. First and foremost, a couple things you might be interested in. There was a data security policy that's kind of a template for the state of Minnesota, but we approved that today. It's in the City Council packet if you want to look at it. I'm interested in any feedback you have, and we also did the second reading, thereby officially creating the Police Oversight Commission today. One of the things I was surprised, a little bit disappointed to see, was that after having some pretty extensive talks on going with compressed natural gas for a lot of our public works vehicles, we ended up pulling back and we went back to the clean diesels because, for a number of reasons, but the number one appears to be that we don't have any the funding we thought might come through to help with the facility improvements. As a result of that, we're had to pull back on compressed natural gas. That's on hold. Don't expect to see anything on that anywhere in the near future. Another thing that I've been screaming bloody murder about this for 3 years, and I'm finally starting to see some action as we're going ahead with some energy consulting to figure out how to use performance contracting or something similar to get some energy improvements done at the Recreation Center, Senior Center. You might remember I blew the whistle when I found out that because some things had to be cut from the budget from the energy from the Recreation Center and the Senior Center, the first thing they cut out was all the energy improvements. I think you're all smart enough to know why I was not too pleased with that. Ultimately, now it looks like we're finally on a path forward to addressing one of the most abysmal buildings of that type in the state of Minnesota. So happy to see that, and I also asked that a member of the Energy Commission be involved in working with that because they had a lot of good ideas on addressing this as well. So that is going forward as well. Two frustrating things. The roundabout came up again to send that out for contract. I knew it was going to be bad. I shouldn't say the roundabout. It's the signalized intersection. It's the place that staff recommended a roundabout. I knew it was going to be a huge problem when we overruled the staff recommendation, made the foolish decision to put in a traffic signal. Not even in my skepticism did I have any idea of how horrible this thing was going to take out. A number of people were at the meeting concerned because the city or county or both are going to attempt to take some of their property and cut down some of their mature trees to make this happen. To put in perspective, if we had gone with the roundabout option, pedestrian crossing in that area, the worst case scenario would have been pedestrian crossing a 28-foot gap with traffic moving much slower because of the roundabout. Now, with the traffic signal, the longest pedestrian crossing is 130 feet. Now, if you think about our 2 lanes for fire trucks going side by side, that's the minimum requirement for the city, have to be about 10 feet apiece. That is the equivalent of 13 lanes for fire trucks wide. That's how far you actually have to cross in this area because of these ridiculous assumptions that we made in turning down the roundabout. So let's talk about what we're getting with the traffic signal over the roundabout. First of all, it's far more expensive, at least $1 million, probably quite a bit more by the time we're sitting down, or $500,000, I don't know if I said $1 million, but we're wasting that much money on a less effective solution. Why is it a less effective solution? Well, a number of reasons. First and foremost, the likelihood of accidents and severe accidents are substantially higher because we have the lights there. Lights tend to be a security blanket. They don't work nearly as well as roundabouts. Bottom line is calming that traffic and getting people aware of what's going on and simplifying the movements is the safest thing. We also made life much more dangerous for pedestrians. There's going to be a lot of turning motions there even when they have the signal. I think it's a tragedy waiting to happen. The number of drive lanes, there are some places where there are 6 different lanes between the different drive lanes and turn lanes coming into play, and that's why this thing blew up so incredibly big. And then there's just the inefficiency of it. We've got to pay the operating costs for the street signals, which tend to be very expensive. But then on top of that, it's just the energy, the simple things that come with operating intersection. Every time a car stops and starts, it's on average about 2 ounces of gasoline. What that translates to is millions and millions of dollars lost from our economy because of this bad decision. Top that off, far more polluted air in that area because of the stopping and starting as well. This was just a boneheaded decision any way that we looked at it. And before I lost 5-2, and now with Nick Campion on board, before I lost 6-1, and now with Nick Campion it was 5-2. So the council's headed in the right direction, but we are still willing to put the political services to well-connected people behind the scenes above competent staff recommendations, and our community is poorer, more dirty, and more dangerous as a result of this horrible decision that the city council made. Hopefully, what I'm hoping for is I hope the landowners fight real hard to prevent the taking down of their beautiful mature trees and the taking of their land, because ultimately I hope they get to a court where the court simply asks the city, do you have to take their land? And no, actually we have this other option that's much simpler and much more responsible. Next item was the 501 building, which is just immediately north of the Good Food Store, People's Food Co-op building, and looks like it could potentially be a fantastic project, but it was really disappointing that they came to the city council tonight because they are nowhere near prime time. It was ridiculous listening to all the things that they planned to do but hadn't done yet, not the least of which is they haven't even worked out how they're going to handle access for the co-op and metropolitan marketplace next door. For the first time ever at this meeting when they were looking for preliminary approval, the neighbors actually saw what their access plan was and said, hey, this doesn't work for us. It's ridiculous that you'd actually come to the city council and they that poorly planned. While a meeting with a neighbor is not required, it is strongly encouraged. And unfortunately, that wasn't done either prior to this meeting. There's staff kind of dropped the ball on yet another staff report. There were more staff errors in yet another report, not the least of which is they stated that this building met with our guidelines, except it didn't. And I give kudos to the neighborhood who pointed some of this out, but I spent a good part of my weekend pouring through plans because I didn't trust staff to adequately reflect what the plans and the guidelines were actually saying. And it turns out I did need to do that because I was right to be skeptical. It wasn't addressed. The most basic one is the guidelines clearly state that anything above 4 stories has to be set back along any public street in equal to or greater than distance than the height of the additional structure. They didn't do that. And you might be willing to work with developers on some of these details, but the problem is the staff report, not only did it not point this out, it didn't even mention the standard to begin with. And then I find out, well, we think the intent was this, except I've actually talked to the people who were the architectural brains behind this, and it's not true. So it's really, really frustrating to get these staff reports that miss out on some of these things. Additional things, there's a lot of discussion in the downtown master plan, and as well as some view sheds for some of the residents that are already there. We're talking about completely closing off the view through an alley because we're going to cover up an alley. A lot of people commented they don't want a dark tunnel through there. And I tend to concur with them. I don't want a dark tunnel through there either, and I think our guidelines and our plans speak pretty clearly against that. There's, in addition to that, I think there was also some confusion over what are we meeting with incentive criteria, they're asking for taxpayer assistance on this. And what we have, I think here, and staff's going to have to verify this for us because none of this was in the report, is a situation where we have a higher density proposal with probably lower land acquisition costs. Certainly depreciated costs will be lower than Kutsky Park Place. And that project, we got, pretty good architecture, underground parking, as well as, two separated or fairly well separated buildings, but also 20% affordable housing units as part of that as well. Now, this project, which seems to be on a better financial footing starting out, has 0 affordable housing projects, yet they're asking for about the same amount of subsidy. And I've got a little bit of an issue with that. I want to know what I'm getting for my money. So we have this huge confusion, and in the end, we just directed staff to do it because I wasn't confident it was going to get done otherwise. And what we did is we said, I want to know what are our guidelines and what are our plan and how does this building compare against it? Because that was not done correctly in this existing report. Now staff can do it correctly. Second thing that I want to know is I want to know, okay, so we have a building and they're asking for incentive, which means they get more density exchange for some things, but then they're also asking for $2 million in taxpayer subsidies, which they want, which they also want to know a little bit more. That we should be getting something in return for that. And Nick Campion correctly pointed out that, hey, wait a minute, it kind of looks like you're asking us for money to do the things that you're claiming are the incentive and the reason that you should get more density. And we have to straighten that out. And the staff report was silent on this. Part of this is because the TIF stuff hasn't come up yet. But the bottom line is you have all these questions, these meetings that haven't happened, this confusion, and this should have never been at the city council. I don't know what the development team was thinking. Well, I do know what they were thinking. They were probably would be like, yeah, we'll get it passed. But it looks like a fantastic project. It looks really beautiful. It would be a good addition to that area. I do think we have to address the access issues for the food co-op. We certainly have to address these alley issues, whether we're going to allow any blockage, some blockage. We certainly have to address the setback issues. We can work with the developer on this stuff, but bottom line is I want to get some value for the taxpayers. This is an incentive project, which means we should be getting something over and above what is required. And then on top of that, they're asking for TIF. So I want something over and above what their incentives are. And, I think probably a good way of doing that would be 20% affordable housing. That's what the neighborhoods asked for. And we're happy to work with them on this, but my God, don't come. And insult to injury, what drove me really nuts is not only were they asking for the preliminary approval, they were asking for the waiver of the final plat as well, which staff did recommend, no, this is not ready for a final plat. But despite all these meetings that hadn't happened, they were saying, not only don't give us just preliminary approval, give us final approval now. I mean, you can ask for anything, but, I'm glad this stuff was shot down, and I think in the end it did. We continued it to April 20th, and I hope a lot of these issues get worked out between now and then. But my God, if you're looking for money from the city, incentive from the city, and to take right away from us to, build over our alley and build under our alley, give us something meaningful in return. And it looks like what we're getting in return is a building that meets some of our guidelines, but not all of them. So we got to do a lot better than that for our community. That said, I was a little bit surprised. I just kind of figured that, despite all these concerns, we just approve it anyway. But, so it is at least continued. And, I'm looking forward to having this come back because I think we gave enough guidance that we're going to get some good direction. And I also think staff's going to clean up their report quite a bit, so we'll have a little bit more knowledgeable discussion. I do really appreciate, too, a planning and zoning member there to kind of give us the details of what was discussed there, why some of these things were important. That was incredibly helpful, and one of our planning commissioners, Lindsay Meek, was there. So that was absolutely fantastic to have her there because it does a lot better job than just looking at some minutes, which don't always reflect what goes on at these meetings. It was very helpful, and I think it shows the insight and the wisdom of the Planning Commission. And I have to say, honestly, between right now, with my level of frustration over this debacle with the Oliver, I have more faith right now in the Planning Commission than I do in my own counselor and my own staff right now. And these are issues that are going to have to be addressed because this isn't even the complicated stuff. The complicated stuff is coming. I think a competent, mature council who have taken one look at this and said, you know what, this isn't ready. Let's not waste 3 hours having a hearing about this. Let's just continue this, and you guys come back when you're ready. So It is what it is. And I think there's a good team. There's a good construction manager. There's a good architect. They've got good legal representation. Um, you know, there's just this was just not ready. So anyway, nothing happening too fast. I look forward to getting some feedback from the neighborhood, what they think about this. I look forward to getting some more meaningful input from staff, and I'm gonna keep hammering on these issues. And that's why I said at the beginning, I'm so appreciative of the people that are giving me support because this is really tough right now. I just have a lot of frustration, a lot of difficulties with what's happening. So your support means the world to me. Thank you so much. Look forward to doing my best to try and continue to advocate for great neighborhoods in this community. I think we're a great community. We don't have to lower our standards to meet people. We should hold our standards high. And anyone who's not willing to meet a set of high standards, let's let them know where surrounding communities are, and maybe they can find one of them that's willing to lower our standards. But don't lower our standards ourselves. Thank you for watching as always. Look forward to being in touch with you. Look forward to talking about DMC next Monday. Bye-bye.